Realist, you are on a roll. Guys, welcome back to the channel. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And if you are a Realist fan, make sure to dislike, unsubscribe, and leave a hate comment. Realist put out another video. And I just have to say, it makes no sense. All I'm hearing is excuses. If you are a Realist fan or you are the Realist and you are watching, you are making excuses. So basically, he made a whole video on who should Jake fight next. And he said Tommy Fury doesn't make sense because Tommy has more fights and he's got more experience, and there's the business-wise it wouldn't make sense because Tommy, the data has proven that Tommy's fights don't bring in pay-per-view numbers or revenue, and he's too advanced for Jake, and he's had 12 amateur fights, and Jake's only had one, and it would be unfair, basically. And I'm here to disprove that whole theory. So, first of all, Jake's coach, BJ Flores, said that Jake's sparred over 200 people, which we all knew about, and he's had the equivalent of 50 to 70 amateur fights. So, thus, if that theory is what we're using, Jake's had more amateur fights than Tommy, and while Tommy has been experienced, has more experience, is better than Jake, and is more advanced than Jake, and has been around boxing longer than Jake, Jake has proven that he has had enough experience in the past year to be competitive with Tommy if they fought. And this defies your logic, as Yusuke had no chance since Jake had sparred some 200 people, and how could a guy that's been inactive for a year train, or beat a guy that's been sparring a whole year? And yes, while Tommy, and that's two different situations, and Tommy has been active, the facts are is that Jake has sparred over 200 people and has had the equivalent of 50 to 70 amateur fights. And so that fact proves that Jake can go up against Tommy and that they've both had pretty much the same amount of fights and same amount of experience. Now again, Tommy's always going to have an edge over Jake, but Tommy is not like Mayweather compared to Jake. He is like Jake's boxing skills in like 3 years if Jake does this consistently and actively. You know, he's fought tomato cans. He's good and better than YouTube boxing standards, but he is like not that far away from Jake's boxing skills. Like, Jake would not crumble. KSI, Logan, Jake, if they all went up against Tommy, they would all do well and hold their own. They would probably get a few good punches in. All three would probably lose, but it would give them the credibility and validity to go from YouTubers to being taken seriously, which is all that Jake wants. And again, Jake, and the reason why I think people want this fight so much is because Jake hypes himself up so much, and along with BJ Flores saying that he has the boxing skills to beat Conor this year, and he boasts so much to drive attention and to keep people talking, but he actually believes it, and he says, I'm KOing pros and surprising people, and, you know, people constantly underestimate me. And if you say that, and you believe that, and then it's true, you should have no problem fighting Dylan Moran or Tommy Fury. Because while those are boxers, Conor McGregor is an MMA guy, but he's been boxing since he was 6 years old. Since he was 6 years old. Conor McGregor has more experience than Tommy Fury. He does. And how does it make any sense if you feel confident enough to beat Conor with your boxing skills, this year, but you don't feel good enough or confident enough to beat Tommy? Where is the logic in that whole thing? There is none. It's because he's not confident. He's an insecure bully who wants to pick on smaller guys and pick on people not his own size to make himself feel better, to boost his ego, to boost his confidence, and to make a lot of money, and to be able to say, hey, I just beat a real fighter, so that way he doesn't have to take on a challenge, so he can work his way up in this business of boxing without actually taking on a challenging fight, and basically get a mediocre rise to the top because he thinks he is so good. And that's going to be his downfall, is him thinking he's good enough and then getting knocked out. Because he could have a luxurious career where he defies the odds, but because he is choosing to believe that he's the best after beating retired people and guys that look like they just came out of like the sauna, like from like a dad bod center, he's going to get flattened. And Jake, and on the business side, the data suggests that Tommy wouldn't bring in numbers. Here's the thing. Jake, KSI, and Logan, baseline, million pay-per-view buys. And that's on a bad day. guaranteed 1 million pay-per-view buys. If you're Jake, if you're Logan, if you're KSI, doesn't matter who you're fighting. You are guaranteed 1 million pay-per-view buys. You are guaranteed you will make money and you will get revenue. Whoever you fight. And that's something that people can't seem to understand or wrap their heads around. These guys are huge and they will bring in numbers. Tommy has 3 million on Insta. And his fights have not proven to bring in numbers as big as Jake. But all of the social media posts, from the polls, Instagram, everywhere, they want this fight. The public wants the fight. It's a fight everyone wants. And big people like Ariel Winter, who interviewed Jake, or whatever his last name is, questioned him about this. If a huge chunk of people and the online and the internet want to see something, it will do numbers. The Snyder Cut, for example. Everyone's like, that's not gonna do numbers, that's gonna be terrible. Boom, it does great numbers. Compared to Godzilla vs. Kong and Mortal Kombat, no. But in its own right, it was incredibly successful, and that's because the audience wanted it. They said, we want this, we want this, we want this, and they refused to give it to them. They got it, and what was it? A success. So if a majority of people want something, it's gonna be a success. That's like saying, oh, we want a movie, but the movie studios won't give it to them. When there's a proven built-in audience, this is free money. And then when they get it, they're like, wow, this was so successful. Why? It's because there was an audience and you ignored them. But when you gave it to them, it was a success. Because Jake's whole excuse is this wouldn't do pay-per-view numbers and wouldn't bring in revenue. But Tommy Fury is a Fury. He's got the Tyson name. He is a showman like Jake. He's got the personality. He's got the social media following to build up hype, to build up a storyline. If Jake versus Ben Askren can do over 1 million, you can guarantee Jake versus Tommy is going to do even bigger than that. And most people would buy this fight because, oh my God, he's going to fight with a boxer. He's going to lose. Like, I would buy this fight. I would pay the $49.99. And I hate Jake, and you make him win by giving him money. But I would pay money to see him get knocked out. I'd watch it on the TV instead of on my online browser. And so many other people would. Because you have the MMA community, the athletic community, the YouTube community, all that want to see Jake Paul fail. And now you're bringing in the boxing community. And they hate Jake Paul as well. So this all makes such good sense. If Jake's worried about business, he doesn't have to. So again, Jake would go skill for skill, and Tommy would probably be more advanced than him. Jake would get credit, validity, and that's what he craves. And Jake and people complain that boxing is not giving the fights they want, and they're giving them tomato cans versus the people we want to see, like Tyson Fury fighting a tomato can. Yet Jake does the same. If you're going to talk a big talk, back it up. But he's not going to, so stay in your own lane. And then The Realist said that he fights tough guys and fighters, but Nate was not a fighter. Although, yes, he did do pads, he was never in a fight. Ben was a wrestler and a fighter in name only. These are cherry picks with good reputations, like Ben's got the chin and Nate's an athlete, but those are very casual things to say, and if people actually knew the difference between MMA and boxing, and that being an athlete doesn't mean you're a good boxer, and I don't want to go into that whole conversation. You can check out my other videos where I go into more in-depth analysis with those statements. They would realize the reality of the situation is these are cherry picks and they're not worth people's times. These are all, so he looks more impressive, so his ego and confidence is boosted, and the public perceives him in the way he wants instead of reality, which is that he is a fraud who, if he went up against someone that was bigger than him or his size, would get crushed and would not be the problem child. Oh my God, I'm so scared. He'd be like, oh yeah, it's Jake, and that's not what he wants. He doesn't want to be seen as just, all right. Also, Realist said that Jake's taken punch. He's never taken a punch in a fight. These are cherry picks. Say it for what it is. And cherry picks will come back to bite him in the butt. Because if he fights cherry picks and then he goes for the big guy, that's like fighting wolves and then fighting a bear. Like, you're gonna get crushed. Like, yeah, you have experience fighting animals and fighting wolves, and they're tough, but they're nothing compared to a bear. And again, cherry picks are fine and for Jake's strategy, but if he wants to go up against the big guys like Connor and all these guys, he can't pick cherry picks, and it will really come back to bite him in the butt. And they said Usman makes more sense than Tommy, and yes, MMA and boxing are different, but still, really? So the summary of this video is Jake runs from the fights that people want and is a coward and is a fraud. He ran away from the KSI. He ran away, and people are like, oh, well, KSI had way more experience. No, KSI had 6 months of training, and this would have been an even fight. And this wouldn't make sense because Logan magically has better chances, even though he never boxed before. Yes, we forced Gib. Nate was the only one calling him out. No one was pressuring him. And then with Ben Askren, everyone wanted Dylan Moran. It would have made sense because storyline-wise, if you beat the guy that gave Conor trouble in the ring, you get that fight. And yes, he would still sell that fight. And at the end of the day, a real fighter cares more about the fight than the pay-per-view and the money. And it proves what Jake's real intentions are, and that's to make money and to keep relevancy and to be kept in people's mouths instead of what real fighters do, which is put it all on the line just so you can get that credit and you can get that respect. But no, Jake's in it for the money. He's not in this because he loves the sport. He loves what the sport is able to give to him. It's all about me, me, me. It's not about the larger sport because he is a selfish, clout-chasing, money-making jerk who cares more about making money than about actually being a true, authentic fighter. And that's what I've been saying this whole time. And if this is all about money, bit hypocritical of you, Jake, since you were the one that was complaining that KSI was making it all about the money. So, yeah, Jake's a coward. He's a fraud. He runs away from fights. And yes, the data proves that with Tommy and with Dylan, they wouldn't bring in numbers. But they would. Because everyone wants those fights. Jake Paul guaranteed 1 million pay-per-view buys. And again, if you are more concerned about pay-per-views and money, that shows where your true intentions are. And a real fighter cares less about the pay-per-view and the money and more about the fight and what it brings to their credibility, their reputation, and where it brings them in life. And, regardless, you'd still be getting millions of dollars, and it's not like you're struggling with money. So, the hypocrisy of Jake equates to hypocrisy of Realist and his fans. He's a fraud, he's a coward, and if you agree and if you say that Tommy wouldn't be a successful fight, you're wrong. Okay, you are. I'm bringing you facts and data and showing you are wrong. Anyways, and I don't like saying that, but I feel like at this point, it's getting too out of control. So anyways, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, dislike, unsub, leave a hate comment. I don't care. Yeah.